Good morning.
Morning. We still made it at 11 o'clock and it's a little hot today.
It is. Haley, we rarely get breaking news on this show, but we have some breaking news that just developed in the travel world. We'll get to it in just a second. Guys, thanks for watching. I'm Jason Poole. I'm a travel advisor with Cruise Planners, and this is really just a behind the scenes look of what Haley and I talk about all the time. Haley, introduce yourself, and then let's get into the breaking news.
Yes. Hello, everybody. My name is Haley. I'm the owner of Hospitality with a Flair, a hotel sales support company, and the writer for HaleyWithAFlair.com, which is a travel blog. And we have a lot today. And like you said, breaking news.
We have some breaking news. The Southwest chairman of the board is stepping down next year. So I don't know if you've heard what's going on with Southwest. Private equity has bought a ton of shares of stock of the company. They now have lots of voting power, and they are demanding changes at the company. Rightfully so. The stock is in the dumpster. They're not competing well. They've had meltdowns. Like, things need to change. The board is the chairman stepping down. Wouldn't be surprised if more people step down. The CEO is remaining. He's been the CEO for decades and decades. He's remaining, but the CEO of the investment group that bought all the shares said, quote, "Now is the time to change. It's time to shake things up, not stir things up a bit." So I'm sorry, that was the former chairman and former CEO. So big changes at Southwest. So briefly, Haley, what do you think went wrong or is going wrong at Southwest?
I think Southwest is borderline on this realm of having an identity crisis.
Yeah.
Like, they used to have a very strong identity with their cheap one-way fares, the bags included, that service piece. And now, they're dabbling into pre-picking your seats. They've had these meltdowns. You have the legacy carriers that are, including some of those more basic features to lower the price tickets. And and frankly, I used to fly Southwest quite a bit, especially when I cruised the Caribbean a bit more.
Okay.
And I used to be able to fly like round trip direct to Orlando, Fort Lauderdale for somewhere between like $150 to $225, which, is a very, I think, a good price for a basic S carrier that doesn't have, first class list, but the bags were included. Made sense. And that's kind of why I ended up becoming a Delta faithful, because I was like, oh, I could start flying this, use my miles to go way more places. And I kind of think that's what it is. And it kind of seems like it is the season, Starbucks just flipped out their CEO, took Chipotle's. Like, there's a whole lot of shakeup going on.
I think it's interesting. Nashville is a big Southwest hub. So I know a lot of people here that are diehard Southwest fans who are not happy about the picking the seat policy. It's like, what's next? Paying for bags? It's like, yeah, I hate to say it, airlines make a lot of money charging for bags.
100%.
And it's like, if Southwest needs money, if I were in charge, that might be on the table,
And then when you look at what other, like budget carriers are kind of a struggle to begin with.
Yep.
But what's really interesting is you don't necessarily see the budget carrier issues, I feel like, as much with like the small European ones, like Vueling and those ones that go like intercontinent over there. But they had been kind of developed this identity. And we can all joke that, Spirit and Frontier have that, like beating their customers or whatever identity. But Frontier has created like that Den program and like these other ways to like infuse revenue and value, and Southwest has just not kept up with that. Like, they're still hanging on to 2 bags fly free. And that's been their identity for forever now. And that just doesn't stand out anymore.
And when's the last time you paid for bags?
Yeah, you get a basic airline credit card and you really need a check bag.
Right, exactly. So keeping in the airports, bags mishandled, I thought this article was fascinating. So there was a recent study that ranked the worst airports, just domestic, for lost and damaged luggage, and then they did the same for Airline. So this is from Ford. We won't go through all of them, but I do think some of the top ones, some are surprising, some are not. So like number 3, LA. I mean, I've never had a problem in LA personally, but
honestly, I thought that Delta terminal in LA that I was just in was like really efficient.
That Delta terminal in LA, it's amazing. 2, Miami. Yeah, Miami is a
clusterfuck, and I don't mean to say like this in a little crush, but like it's like a third world country there. Like
it is.
The lighting's always weird in there. Like it's dirty. It is.
I hate the Miami airport. I hate it. I hate it. Number 1 worst airport for lost and damaged luggage, according to Forbes, JFK.
I can see it maybe based on volume.
Yep.
But I've personally, and I fly JFK a lot. I've never really had the issue. Like I had one time where my bags didn't make it, but they were at my door by 10 a.m. the next day.
So what I think is fascinating in the top 10, who's not there, the busiest airport in the world, Atlanta. So I think that's interesting. Not in the top 10, and they're the busiest in the world. So now here's the worst airlines for damaged and mishandled luggage. So starting at number 5, we'll go up quickly. 5, JetBlue. 4, Alaska. 3, United. 2, SkyWest. If you don't know, SkyWest is like a little regional airline that all the airlines kind of use. And number 1 worst airline, according to Forbes, for mishandled luggage, American Airlines.
I probably would have pushed United up there because literally every time I've ever flown United, they've damaged one of my bags.
And if you're wondering where they fall, Delta is at number 7.
Yes, keeping it fair and transparent here.
Fair balance. So now, also keeping it in the airline industry, the Department of Transportation recently sent a letter to the 4 largest airlines in the country, Delta, American, Southwest, and United, asking for an investigation of their loyalty programs. Basically, the government is saying, what's up with your loyalty program? Why did the programs keep changing? Why is it hard for people to use their miles on redemption to redeem them for complimentary flights? What's going on? Can you show us with the behind the scenes of a loyalty program? What do you think?
I think that some Delta loyalist with high pull is the source of this becoming an issue. Because American changed theirs a little while ago. Like we've seen some, but it wasn't until this last Delta go that you really started seeing a bunch of outrage. And transparently, you and I have talked about this frequently. Delta, mile for mile, is generally the worst redemption rate across the board.
Yeah.
Like,
yep.
You and I talked, because at first you were surprised that I was flying American to Seattle. I was like, I was able to book 3 first-class tickets for 25,000 miles apiece in first class going across the country.
Well, I've even seen things. I saw something on Instagram the other day. Like this guy found the same, like a Delta flight and a Virgin flight. We looked at through Virgin, but it was the same Delta flight. Mm-hmm. And if he transferred his miles, it was like half the miles to go through Virgin.
100%.
It was the same flight.
Flying Blue, as I've booked a Delta flight with Flying Blue.
Right. So
I think this last change of Delta, it was the last straw from somebody who definitely has some pulse somewhere.
You know what? Secretary Buttigieg must be a medallion member. He must be.
I mean, he's really been like trying to take these airlines to task.
I agree. And I there are so many things that I think are just like so unfair. Like we've talked about this before. Like Why do I have to use global upgrade certificates for domestic routes just because they're popular routes? Like, I think that's absurd.
Oh, I know.
Um,
And even the companion passes for the Delta cards, it is a pain in the butt
it depends about to use.
to
Depends
use
about to use, or even like if you have status, they will they're supposed to give you first class complimentary, and they're like, oh, if you're diamond, it's what 72 hours before, like maybe even like 90 something.
and those upgrades have been very few and far between this year. I will tell you.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
it has definitely been a last case scenario day of situation where in the past I've gotten my 72-hour window or my.
I agree. And look, and if they still had a first class, that's fine. People bought it. I have no problem with it. No problem. If I wanted it, I should have bought it. Right? No problem.
100%.
But when there's seats open and I'm literally at the gate and I'm like, you should have cleared this 3 days ago. I'm like,
Yeah, they're really waiting till like the gate now to do that, and it feels like, and I mean, and that's part of where I've been a little bit more exploratory, and you and I have, and it's like, if the first is cheap enough on another line to a degree, like I'll flirt with it now.
Mm-hmm.
You said it. Don't even tell me you haven't. You have said that.
So it's like, yeah. Now that I'm gonna hit diamond again for next year, I almost feel like anything extra I spend is almost like, am I wasting? But it's
well, I mean, you kind of have to like weigh that out. And I mean, for me, buying 3 tickets, like if I'm going to Europe for myself, my husband, and my daughter, like if I can book business class on BA Lufthansa for half the price, I don't mind looking at it because it comes with the perks that I'm getting. I do my other.
I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. I'm not there.
I want to buy 2 other tickets.
I'm not there yet. I'm not there.
If I was solo, maybe I wouldn't care.
Yeah, that's fair. No, you're right. 1 versus 3. Totally.
I think that there is some medallion members that have some pull and are just like, we are done. And I mean, even looking at the access they changed for the clubs, and I mean, airline lounges are just turning into a moneymaker, where you're seeing so many more like Capital One and Chase and all this pop up. But yeah, I think it's about time, because there's other things to overhaul. Like you and I talked about how, like when I flew LAX to Detroit, even in Comfort Plus, like it was just, here's the pretzels, here's the Biscoff. And it's like, that's like, I think about that from like a standpoint. And then we got to Detroit so late. There were no gift shops, no restaurants open. And it's like, man, you're really hanging people out to dry without like, food and drink, like consistent food and drink. There's that. I mean, we didn't even have a meal technically in first going Dallas to Seattle, but we did Buffalo to Dallas. I think there's a lot that needs to come. So I'm definitely I'm a Pete fan here. I hope he does more.
Well, speaking of things maybe that aren't as welcomed, down in the South Pacific, we're seeing this trend at places. We've seen it in Italy, this kind of like, how do we combat tourism, over tourism? New Zealand had a tourism tax. They called it the International Visitor Conservation and Tourism Levy. And it used to be 22 American dollars. Now they're raising it to 62 American dollars. And they're doing it they say, to help, preserve the environment, the natural landscapes. I mean, I'm okay with it because, anybody that is traveling to New Zealand can, they can afford the $40 extra per person. I just think these incremental changes are not ever enough. Like what was the Venice thing? Was it like €4 a day or something?
Yeah, it was something just
like, so I think 40 American dollars is, a decent amount. I don't think it's going to persuade anybody to go to New Zealand.
I know that it's in the guise of combating over tourism, but at that point in time when people are traveling to the places they're traveling, $100 is not going to be a deal breaker.
No,
they can get it. They can get it, and I think they know they can, and they can put it under the label of over tourism. And might it maybe deter a small portion of people? But like, if people are paying to go to Venice, paying to go to New Zealand, they could frankly charge more.
Oh, I think so too. I like the Galapagos doubled their entrance fee from like to but the Galapagos is like a national park, and they doubled it from $100 to I think it was to $200 per person. But it's like,
And I would say, I would think my only question to that would be is like, I want to see where it's going.
oh right, right. But is anybody not going to the Galapagos over $100?
Yeah. Well, it's like, if you're going to charge us, I also want to see where my money is going
I agree,
to.
but
I think that's my other piece of it is the.
and they don't have to tell you.
I don't. But I mean, as a consumer, that's just what I'd like to see, because it's like, okay, we're going to call it over tourism, let's call it that, but like, let's see the initiatives.
No, I agree. So Oceania is making some changes, and I'm kind of okay with this. So Oceania, I think, is one of those brands that it. I think they're always kind of like struggling to find their like identity, right? Because they're, part of the Norwegian group. So it's Norwegian, Oceania, Regent, and they're much closer to Regent than they are Norwegian.
Yeah.
Like the Oceania rep has the saying that the Regent rep hates. He says, "Just as nice, half the price." Okay, okay. So, but they're always doing these promotions where like Oceania is like, this is included or that's not included, or oh, now it's pick your perk, and it's just like, it reminds me of the days when celebrity was just like, it was like go big, go better, go best, or elevate, or like all. It's like they were constantly changing.
Yeah.
And so Oceania's done another change, and I'm hoping this is it for a while. So now there's going to include gratuities in the cruise fare. So there's no option to like not pay for the gratuities, which I think should be the standard. When I book any reservations for my clients, I just add the gratuities to it. But now drink packages are not automatically included, which again, I'm okay with, because they weren't always included anyways. It was always the like, what's the current promo? And I'm hoping this kind of helps separate them a little bit more from Regent, which drinks are always included, gratuities are always included, shore excursions are always included.
Well, and that what you find with that target client for that brand, generally speaking, drink package isn't a deal breaker, a must have.
No.
You might as well make the money that you can off of it.
I agree.
I don't think you're going to see the prices decrease a whole lot because they're not including drinks. I think it's another little supplemental boost.
I agree. Well, let's switch over to one of your favorite new cruise lines, Princess.
Yes.
So they've announced the largest Caribbean summer season ever for summer 2026. And we won't go into all the options, but they're leaving from Port Canaveral, Fort Lauderdale, lots of options in the summer. Now, if you're new to cruising world, you may not realize cruising Caribbean in the summer used to be like one option.
Yeah.
Or like two, right? I mean, I used to cruise Caribbean in the summer, from a previous relationship, but the scheduling, and very limited because summer was all about Med and Alaska. That's where the cruise line sent the ships. So Haley, why are we seeing this increased focus from Royal Caribbean, from MSC, from Celebrity, from Princess on summer Caribbean?
Well, transparently, not everybody can afford Europe, Alaska, wherever.
Because your flights to Europe in the summer aren't nothing.
And coming from like a northern state, for example, flying on Easter week, President's Week, Christmas to Florida can run you $1,000 a person.
Yep.
Plus the high cruise prices for those weeks. Because obviously revenue management, you're going to maximize where you can, where the demand is. I think this opens up an opportunity over a longer period of time where kids are out of school. I think that's a great way to capture new to cruise. And generally speaking, the airfare to Florida and stuff is a bit cheaper in the summer.
Yep.
I
So
mean, I think it makes sense. And now that I mean, all these lines are building new ships. It's not that they don't have the fleet for it.
well, so I remember 2023. Celebrity had the Silhouette in the Caribbean. I'm doing 6 night, 8 night, 6 night, 8 night. I had to tell countless people, I'm sorry, I can't book you on this cruise. It's sold out.
Yeah, it's hard
I
to
remember
figure out,
being in the Med, actually on the Beyond, learning the Beyond was going to go to Florida year-round Caribbean, and I was like, "What? That's crazy." Haley, I've sold more Beyond like summer Caribbean. Because look, there are people who just live in Florida or drivable distances, Georgia, South Carolina, Mississippi. Like they just want to just get away on a cruise ship for a week.
well, and I think especially with like the stuff going on in the world today, there's a bit of comfort for that North American market.
Absolutely. So I understand the hey, maybe not every trip needs to be a let's go explore new places and check off new cities and countries. It's just, I mean, heck, in some ways it was me, but I just did in Alaska. Relax. Let's just enjoy the ship, enjoy the restaurants, enjoy the shows, and just relax. So I think it's cool. And especially as all these cruise lines are building more ships, they've got more, you know, ships to put them different places. That doesn't mean Princess is still not in the Med, and Lord knows in the summer, Princess is not abandoning Alaska.
Well, they're not that Northern Europe. I mean, they're all over, but I think that's a continued trend that we'll see, and I think is an answer to Royal Caribbean Group
I agree.
making that commitment. I think that's that answer, and they're like, man, let me get a piece. Let me get a piece of that.
Absolutely. Because I mean, I think, Icon staying year round. I mean, look, there's not a lot of ports that are big enough for Icon, right? But, Beyond year round. I mean, those are some nice ships.
And I mean, they're ordering more Icon class. Like they're doubling down.
I know. So I think it just makes sense. So I think it's cool, especially for that. And I think it clearly shows that these premium brands, Princess, Celebrity, are they don't want to become a kids cruise line, but I think they're clearly signaling, hey, we're welcome to have some children, and especially like multi-generational families. I think cruise lines like Celebrity and Princess are great for multi-generation groups.
100%. Before we head to the tip, Jason, I do want to highlight a question that was asked because I think it's a great question.
Okay, yeah.
So Wendy over on YouTube was asking, my passport expires in July. How early should I renew? I'm thinking now I'd like to travel in January. So the first bit of that is, depending on where you're traveling, they would, like most European countries, your passport needs to be valid for 6 months after. So depending on where that is, I mean, I would probably get that process started in October.
So I tell my clients, your passport is valid for 9 years, not 10. And when you hit, if your passport expires in fewer than 12 months, in my mind, it's already expired.
Yeah.
And so
I have to start that process. Like mine expires December of next year. I'm about to.
Yep. I just because so many places require you to have 6+ months out. So Wendy, I would say it's not like an emergency, but I would say sooner.
Like October, I would start dabbling in October, especially because the turnaround.
Right. It's gotten much better, but look, if you could save yourself money by not paying for expedited, just kind of, hey, if it takes it a month, 2 months to come back, who cares?
Yes.
I would much rather save the money, not be in a hurry. So yeah, I would start
with something coming up. I would just get it done.
I agree.
sooner than later.
I agree. So our travel tip of the day, this might be a little in kind of in the weeds, but I like it. So I was flying home from my Alaskan cruise, and we were going to Seattle, Salt Lake, Nashville, and I had a really short layover in Salt Lake. So I'm checking my bags, and I'm Scott Priority. That was the Scott Priority tags on there, but they have an express. I think they call it a rapid transfer. It's like hot rapid transfer. Different sticker on the luggage tag, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's brilliant!" Now I cannot speak if our friends at Southwest, well, don't have a lot of layovers, but our friends at United and American have this. I assume they do for rapid transfer. So if you have a really short connection, ideally, the agent, when you check in, should automatically see it and tag it with the right sticker. But it doesn't hurt to ask, do you have a rapid transfer sticker? Because we have a very short connection at airport.
Yeah, I mean, I had never seen these, you guys. I travel a lot. So I was learning a lesson that Jason showed me, took the picture. I was like, oh, I've never seen that. And I've had some tight.
I mean, yeah.
connections.
When we were going, we went gate to gate. Like it was a very, very quick transfer in Salt Lake. So it's a good idea just to ask for it. They might just say like everything's fine, but at least Delta, I know, has the rapid transfer stickers. So
I mean, and that's not the lesson unless you ask for it.
right. Demand the unreasonable. All right, guys, it was great chatting with you today. And then next Tuesday, I don't know where I'll be, somewhere in the Mediterranean. I'm sailing with Regent, getting on this weekend in Malta and doing an 8-night med sailing. So
to like be in Malta.
I assume I will have internet access. So hopefully next week I will still be able to do the show live from, I'm not sure where I'll be in the Med, but somewhere in the Med.